Good evening. Welcome to the Gurnee Village Board regular meeting of July 2nd, 2018. Roll call, please. Donna?
Jacob?
Here.
Ross?
Here.
Garner?
Here.
Bomas? Hood?
Here.
Thorstensen?
Here.
All present, one absent.
All right. And Trustee Balmas let us know she'd be out of town. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Where's the flag? These are still. John. They didn't make it back from Walton Plaza ceremony as well.
Oh.
Yeah, there's another one in the other room.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. That's not yours. Right?
Actually, you can do it without a flag, right?
We could
We got one.
All right.
We got a
bring
spare.
the fire chief up and we'll do it.
Just stand here and hold it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's for tomorrow.
All right, first up is public comment. If you'd like to come to the microphone, state your name.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. My name is Jim Hunter, and I've lived for several years in the Villa Hill section of Gurnee. I'm 94 years old. I have trouble hearing, and I have trouble with certain words such as now. The reason I'm here tonight is I want to talk about an expensive money scam. I am a victim of a money scam, and what I want to do, I want to advertise that money scam, and I want to tell you the things I went through for doing that, and I will attempt to keep my comments in 5 to a maximum of 10 minutes. However, this story comes from 7:30 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. At 7:30 in the morning, I'm enjoying a cup of coffee and reading the newspaper, and my grandson called, crying, "Help, help, 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 help me, I'm in trouble." Then the phone went dead. Then a couple seconds later, he called me back. "Did you hang up on me?" "No, Garrett, I didn't hang up on you." And then he started to tell me what happened. A woman had ran a red light, T-boned him, and he's in trouble, and he has hired a lawyer, and he wants me to contact that lawyer and get him out of jail. Well, I called the lawyer, John Matthew, and I told him I was calling about my grandson. He said he's in deep trouble. Both cars are totaled. The woman is in bad shape. He's got a broken nose and 5 stitches in his lip, and he's in real trouble. And it's going to take $83,000 to get him out of jail. And so he talked to me a few minutes, and then he told me what I had to do. I had to go to the bank and get the money out, and then go to the CVS store on the corner of Washington and Green Bay Road. I got the money. I went over there and talked to the manager, and we put the money on these green dot bank cards, of which I don't understand. And then as soon as we did that, she said to me, "There's something about this story that doesn't sound right." And she kept repeating that 4 or 5 times. And it was getting under my skin because I wanted to get out of there and go help my grandson. And then I got the idea, why is she telling me that something's wrong? Why is she so concerned about it? And I thought, I'm going to give my grandson a call. My grandson is a manager of a Nissan automobile agency that's doing very well. I called Garrett. He answered the phone. "Garrett, did you call me this morning?" "No." "Have you been in an automobile accident?" "No." And then I told him what I was going through. And he said the previous week, a man had called him and talked just a very short time. He never understood what the man wanted. And then he hung up. And that's how he got my son's voice, because I recognized my son's voice. And so the manager and I knew now that it was a scam. So I told her to give me 3 dummy cards, and I'm going to go home and call this nice lawyer. So I went home and scratched the numbers off, And then I called this nice lawyer, and I says, "Oh, we appreciate you so much. You've done so much for my grandson. Our family is just so happy with what you've done. Now, I've got these cards. Would you like to have the numbers now?" "Oh, yes." And so very slowly, I read the numbers off. And then once again, I thanked him for all the good work he had done for us. And then he said he was going to get to the pharmacy. So the manager and I both knew this time that there was a scam. So I asked her, "Give me 3 dummy cards, and I'm going to go home and call the lawyer." And so I did. And then after that, I knew the job was done. So I went to the police station and gave my report to them. And then, because I ride my horse every day and it was getting late, so I went out to Temple Farms, Lipizzan, to ride my horse. As I got there, a client was coming in. I said, "Carol, guess what I've been through today?" And I started telling her. She says, "Oh, I had that yesterday. My grandson called, and he kept calling me Grandma, Grandma this and Grandma that, and I knew that it was a scam, so I hung up." And so when she did that, I realized what I had failed to do. In my big family, I'm known as Opa, and that's German for grandfather. And so my grandson had not said, "Opa, I'll help, I need help, I need help." And when he called back, he didn't say, "Opa, did you hang up on me?" And so since then, I have run into 7 different people who have gone through this like things that I had gone through. One woman lost $4,000. Another one received a call from Paris, and she says, "I know you're not in Paris because I just talked to you a half an hour ago." So what I'm saying is, anytime you get an emotional call and people wanting money right now, hang up and call that person, and you'll be very happy. And so, any questions?
Well, you were very astute, and I'm glad that the clerk at the CVS prompted you to question it. The same thing happened to my mother-in-law involving my son. She was called and said her grandson was in trouble. I forget, similar to an accident. They'd been driving, hit someone, he was in jail, she needed to send money, and she was convinced and would not listen to my husband when he told her, "No, Jared's okay," and would not listen to my daughter when she said, "Jared's right here, he's okay." She was convinced. So it is very emotional, it's very upsetting. They do it, I believe one of our trustees' mother-in-law had the same thing happen here in Gurnee. I think there probably should be a way for us to frame a story or something without names to put something out, maybe work with Sue in the senior center. I know the police department does a lot of work meeting with our senior citizens, but we need to get something out.
Need to work to get that message out to our senior centers and to the places where there are victims. So I appreciate your comments here today.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Use this video.
Oh, good. I'll be happy to make more. I've had experience on television, radio, and I've done a lot of
Well,
public
you
service.
did a great presentation.
Yes.
Okay.
And for 94, you look very fit, and you are absolutely all there and articulate, so God bless you for that, too.
And later on that night, I'm on the telephone. And the lawyer breaks in, and he says, "What happened?" I said, "You know what happened, and don't you call this number again." Now, question, how did he break into my into my telephone line?
Oof. That would be something our police department would work with you on and possibly be able to explain, but I don't know. We don't have party lines anymore. When I grew up, we had party
Right.
lines. We don't have those anymore.
On the farm, we used to have 10 families on the same line, and all 10 receivers went up at the same time. So thank you, Mayor, and members of the board, for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. I'm glad everything turned out all right. Good evening.
Jim Eimerman from 3978 Blackstone. Did you say you went out riding a horse the other day?
Oh, I've been riding for 88 years.
That's pretty impressive. So I'm here regarding the issue that we had over on Blackstone. last time we spoke a couple weeks ago, we came in here pretty hot and heavy. We were very upset, wanted to make sure that the board recognized the severity of how we felt things were happening over there. So I also think that good deeds should be mentioned. And I was very impressed by the response that the village had out there. You had a huge crew out there trying to clean that up, and it was quite a task. So I was very impressed with that, and I do want to give you credit where credit's due. Also, there was police presence, and I really think you guys stepped up to the plate, recognized that we were very concerned about it, and did a great job. So I do want to make that comment. And then the other reason I'm here is going forward, I'm just hoping that we do have some kind of a restoration plan that we're going to work on. Obviously, I'm aware that there are certain times of year that you do plantings. Obviously, you don't plant when it's 90 degrees out. Sometimes you want to do bushes and trees in the fall or spring. So I just want to make sure there is a commitment that something is being considered, and we're going to be working towards a goal of improving visually how it appears now. I know you guys are pretty sensitive to curb appeal, because I see that you're getting ready to designate quite a bit of money to the curb appeal of the entryway to Great America. So in that vein, we're also concerned about our curb appeal. So I'm hoping that there is a plan that's going to be coming forward, and you'd mentioned that you might be willing to work with us and meet with us in the future. So
I made a commitment that I'll meet with the neighborhood. Right now, staff is focused on some very major capital infrastructure projects that are kicking off, but they will come up with a restoration plan. Some of that's floodplain through there, so there's some best practices that we're required to follow. But they'll put a restoration plan together, and I will meet with you. We think it'd probably be sometime in August, and some of that's based on my schedule and my availability, because I am not here all the time during the day. So,
right. I'm not trying to press you. I realize there's
we got
other
some
things
big projects that are just kicking off. Staff will get focused on it. They'll figure out what the best practices are for wetlands and this, soil preservation and all that out there. And then we'll present to the neighborhood before we do anything.
Great. Thank you. And thanks again for your quick response. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Martin Peters, 3924 Blackstone Avenue. Basically, I'm going to repeat a little bit of what Jim just said. I do want to thank everybody that has responded. Communication is very helpful for us when the event was taking place. A lot of trustees, Greg came out, I really appreciated his time, and I saw Pat out there quite a bit as well, so I do want to recognize that and say thank you for that effort. Jim just kind of talked about a few things. I've handed before the meeting some questions, not probably worth going through at this time, and I doubt you have the answers to them. But if you could look them over, and if you could communicate with us concerning the restoration plan. At this point, this is our number one concern, obviously. And that's really about it. That's all I have to say. But we're looking forward to hearing from you as soon as possible.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other public comment? Go ahead.
I just want to introduce myself to the board and mayor and the board. My name is Sam, and Sam Totokura. I represent the McAllister's Deli. I'm a franchise owner, so I want to just say I'm glad to be a part of the community, and I just want to thank you all. I mean, we are going through the permitting process, and we are planning to open up in September.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name of the business.
McAllister's
Oh, yes. I'm something. What? Yes, we are excited to have you open. I'm looking forward to your sweet tea. I haven't had it in years. So, yes, we're going to get you through the process. And August opening or September?
We are looking at September, end of September.
Okay.
We are getting the possession, and we also have to go through the sign permit process.
All right. For years, people have been asking for a deli. And when I heard McAllister's was coming, I was like, yes. So I'm familiar with you from the south. So, yeah, good.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. I did not get that. All right. Anybody else want to announce a restaurant? All right, we'll have another opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. Item number B, approval of the consent agenda as presented. Motion by trustee Jacobs, second by trustee Ross. Roll call, please. Donna?
Jacobs.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstensen.
Yes.
All ayes, one absent.
All right, motion carries. Patrick, please read the consent agenda into the record.
Item number 1, approval of the minutes from the June 18, 2018 and June 25, 2018 Village Board meetings. Item number 2, approval of ordinance 2018-52, approving the plat of easement which grants a utility easement to the Village of Gurnee at 3550 Grand Avenue. Item number 3, approval of ordinance 2018-53, authorizing the execution of a recreational lease agreement with ComEd for installation of a paved pedestrian path across the ComEd right-of-way at Knowles Road. Item number 4, approval of request for police officers Dan Ruth, Sean Torrey, and Jim Caldwell to attend the 2018 National Law Enforcement Exploring Conference in West Lafayette, Indiana, from July 16th through July 20th, 2018, at no cost to the village. Item number 5, approval of payroll for period ending June 22nd, 2018, in the amount of $820,397.14. Item number 6, approval of bills for period ending July 2nd, 2018, in the amount of $477,071.98.
Thank you, Patrick. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as read into the record? Motion by trustee Jacobs, second by trustee Garner. Roll call, please. Donna?
Jacobs. Ross.
Aye.
Garner.
Aye.
Hood.
Yes.
Thorstensen.
Yes.
All ayes, one absent.
All right, motion carries. We'll move on to petitions and communications. And I was remiss at the beginning. I did want to say a personal thank you to staff for all the work that went into the Richard A. Welton Village Plaza, especially trustee Ross with her leadership to get it done. But you guys just exceeded all expectations. The family was thrilled. It's beautiful, and our residents are really, really going to enjoy having that nice park again. So thank you, everyone, Pat included, who put some effort into that. It's going to be just a wonderful location for us. Do you want to add anything, Cheryl?
And I'd like to say thank you also.
For everyone's
Try to
patience.
remember everybody, but thank you.
All right. No other petitions and communications, so reports. We have a presentation from our assistant to the administrator, Jack, on a proposal about our village-owned monopoles in Brookhaven and Kilbourne. So, Jack.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So just a brief presentation for you guys. So to kind of give you a little bit of background about the village's cell tower ownership. So essentially back in about the mid-90s, cell tower companies started approaching the village looking to expand. So what we did is we put them on quite a few of our water towers, starting with. So basically every water tower we have has cell leases on them, and also ones that we don't have yet also have future leases. We also have a couple monopoles with our equipment on it. So this includes the police station, it's attached to the building, and Fire Station 2. So these are ones that we have critical communication infrastructure with. Aside from these ones too, we have some that don't have village equipment on them, and these are Brookhaven Drive by the police station, and also Kilbourne Drive, which is the public works facility. So the police station is the first tower we identified, built in 2009. It's T-Mobile constructed this tower, and it's village owned now. So essentially they constructed it, and then we received a rent abatement until the value was paid off. So now the village is in ownership of this tower. T-Mobile is our only tenant as a landlord, and they have a 5-year lease with five-year renewals. So basically a 25-year term. Our second tower is our public works tower. And actually, just to kind of point out from visually, you can actually see, for people who, like myself, are not necessarily technically inclined, can see the actual tower equipment at the top. That represents the T-Mobile equipment, 3G, 4G, and etc. The second tower is the public works tower. This was built in 2001. It was constructed by Sprint. Different companies at the time, but they've kind of merged together to be just Sprint at this point. And then it's also village owned. We essentially received rent abatement until the value was paid off. But this one we have two tenants on it. We have Sprint, which signed in 2001, and T-Mobile, 2004. It took them a while to get built, so essentially they did an amendment to extend it to start in 2005. And these also are 5-year leases with 5-year renewals. So, and this one has the 2 equipment essentially on it, with room for more on both these towers. So to kind of put together the value of the ownership, this gets really technical. I'm not going to get too far into the weeds with this one. This was put together with a lot of assistance from David and also Brian. So it's not just my math. Because I hadn't done math like this since undergrad. So for the Sprint lease, essentially, it expires in 2026. We're currently getting about $34,000 a year off of it in payments, and every 5 years it has a 15% escalator. T-Mobile lease extends a little longer to 2029, get about $40,000 for this one, and 20% increase every 5 years. So the total value from now until 2029, or including 18, is about $1 million, is what the money we would receive. Now, the thing that we consider is if we consider a buyout, is where I'm going to go with this later, we have to consider the net present value of the money. So essentially, money in the future is worth less than money now. So the net present value of these towers essentially is about $542,000 for this term. So a little complex, but it'll show kind of where it becomes relevant. In addition to this, to the Brookhaven Tower, the police tower, this one it goes a little bit longer through 2034. We receive $32,000 in rent, and it's a 3% escalator annually, which is actually a better term than 15% every 5 years, just with compound interest that it continues to increase. So over the course of this lease, we'd bring in $700,000 in revenue, but really that net present value is only about $310,000, just because when you start looking into the further horizons of it, money in the future is worth less than money now. So that's essentially the financial, and this was using a 10% discount rate. There's different factors people could use, but this seemed to be a fairly industry standard. So kind of how this process started. So in 2017, we received an offer, just kind of out of the blue, to purchase the towers. And it was something that kind of sparked an internal benefit or discussion with us of the benefit of being a landlord, which is kind of an odd job for the village, versus the benefit of selling off this capital asset, which to us has no other value other than financial value. There is some infrastructure value, you could argue, with having better cell service for our residents, but other than that, our goal is to maximize revenue for this tower. So to get more quotes, what we did first is we kind of went out, we reached out to the different firms to try to see what offers we could get. Of these 5 we reached out to, 1 responded. Essentially, we ended up getting 3 offers from 2 of the firms. So to kind of break down the math of it, we looked at it. If we didn't do anything but continued to lease, and this is over a 50-year period, if we continued to lease and continued to renegotiate the deals based exactly how they are now, which isn't very practical, but it's the best way we could look at this, the net present value would be about $1.4 million for us over that term if we did nothing and just continued to do this. Firm A offered us, originally they offered us $2.1 million. Well, during this time period, the T-Mobile Sprint merger started to become a reality, and when those are 2 of our tenants on them, the deal became less valuable. So they said, we'll offer you $1.75 million, but if in 2 years the merger falls through, we'll give you the remaining $350,000 and make it $2.1 million, which our initial offer was. And then we had another firm offered a one-time buyout for $1.2, and then also a kind of a mixed agreement where they did some money up front and then continued money over time, $1,000 a month with escalator. So basically, the gist of this is money was all over the table. It was all spread out, so we weren't quite sure what the actual value was. So because this wide variation, and we're dealing with large capital assets here, the difference between the offers made us enough to think not to move forward with anything at this time, but we were just kind of doing initial research, learning a little bit more about the value of the towers. And essentially, it's a very specialized industry. You have to have expertise in it. And also it requires a little bit of market speculation. So we look at these cell towers, and in 50 years, are they going to be worth more than now, or are they going to be obsolete? And it's almost impossible to tell, but markets determine, and there's a value in buying cell towers right now, because a lot of them are hedging that bet that they'll be around. They've been around for 30 years now. They may be around for 50 more. So kind of what we're looking at for our professional recommendation is to look at a professional consulting firm which could maximize revenue from a potential sale. So this is something that we kind of want to get village feedback on and kind of see what the thought is. So a company that we reached out to is Sell at Auction. So Sell at Auction we're familiar with just from, they've been working with other municipalities in the area, and this is all that they do, is they sell cell towers. Because every municipality, every cell tower owner has gotten buyout offers the last couple of years. So they specialize in it. They have a lot of experience in the field, and they're licensed auctioneers. So much like how we auction off any of our capital assets and equipment, they specialize in auctioning off cell tower leases or the towers themselves. So they have extensive connections in the cellular field. Whenever they list an offer, they have contacts, over 1,000 contacts, goes directly to them. So if we went through our normal process of a bid, posted in the newspaper, sent it out, the chance that we would hit anywhere near that of people that are the right people is slim. And then they also have references include City of Markham, Peru, Wilmington. These are some Illinois ones. They have a couple in the Chicago suburbs, but they're small. But they're a relatively new firm. They've been around for about 5 years now, but they've had success in sales. So if we selected Sell at Auction, they would work with the village to determine a minimum reserve price. So this is the minimum price that essentially we'd be willing to sell the towers for. It's between us, so it's not like eBay where you know what the minimum is. We determine a certain value. If we don't reach that value, we walk away from it. Essentially what Good kind of gave us internal starting value. If the market research did nothing else, it told us a little bit of what the cell tower could be valued at. Recent sales that they just recently conducted a sale, they usually receive 8 to 10 offers from firms. They have mentioned we would be a little bit larger than their other clientele. Our towers are desirable. They're in desirable locations. They think it would be a pretty hot offer if they were out there. And then they're also given an opportunity to submit a final best offer. So with this, it just gives us a chance to maximize the revenue. And then what happens is then at the end, the buyer pays a commission to Sell at Auction. So it's negotiable, similar rates to real estate commissions. So we're talking anywhere from 2 to 7%. This would also be brought back to the board if this was what we did, and we would bring back a contract at that time. And if no reserve is met, the transaction is completely voided. So we're not committed to it if we don't receive what we would plan to receive from the start. And they would help us set a good reserve. And they're also, they're experts in the field, and they'd help us with the contract too. So some of the offers we got included a lot of variable language. They can really help us set up a contract that's in our best interest in the long term, and it's what is happening in the field. The nice thing too with Sell at Auction or using a third-party firm such as this is we could receive a variety of pricing options, and we could really bring it back to the board to determine what the favorable option could be. We could do a 20-year buyout of the lease, 30-year, 50-year, or we could do a permanent buyout where we just sell off the assets as they are. We could set it up so it's 100% upfront cash, or kind of a hybrid model where essentially we receive a cash offer and then also we receive additional revenue for additional tenants. So for example, if a tower got another tenant, we would receive 33% of the revenue of that tower. We could set it up. So that would get you less upfront cash but more long-term cash. So we could kind of base it on what we want in income in return for our residents and businesses. So kind of what we're here today, we've been working on this a little bit behind the scenes, but we wanted to bring it before the board and kind of get a temperature and what the thought is of an idea of selling off our assets at this time, which are the cell tower leases, which bring in future revenue, but as I mentioned earlier, are not necessarily assets otherwise. They have no other purpose for us. If it's a favorable consensus, what we'll do is we'll bring forward a proposal to work with a firm. The recommendation right now is Sell at Auction, but we're open to other firms. It's just a very specialized market. There aren't a lot of firms that do this, and they have kind of the expertise in our area. Is there any questions, comments, feedback from the board?
I bet there will be. So, Trustee Thorstensen?
I don't know if it's in this part or if it was just online, but the 3 municipalities that were listed,
I guess I was looking for something around us, around Lake County Market. Is there another company similar to Sell at Auction that operates a little bit closer to us?
I mean, Sell at Auction will be in our area and in our market. They just haven't done it necessarily in another municipality. My experience with them, I've never worked with them professionally, but I've been familiar with them in the field for a couple of years. I had been approached by them at a previous municipality that I worked for. At the time, they had no clients. So they were getting started. They were a new startup firm. They had a lot of ambition. Since then, they've represented a lot of private sector firms. And at the end of the day, these towers, the difference between a private sector and a public sector are nearly the same. It's that these companies, they really rely on the buyers not really knowing what they're doing when they're making buyout offers. They work with auto mechanic shops or municipalities or people who aren't in the field, and they make them an offer, especially in the recession or tight times when an offer of $350,000 sounded like a really good deal, where the valuation isn't there. So a lot of municipalities haven't necessarily worked with them, but that doesn't mean that they know more, that they wouldn't be able to do so.
Other questions? Trustee Jacobs?
Sure, I hate to bring this point up, but do you believe that these municipalities that are listed are painting true picture value of these assets that they're disposing of? I look at some of them and I believe they're sort of like fire sale. Like these towns are getting rid of things at a fire sale when I look at the names of these municipalities.
And that's usually a lot of the sales are. I can tell you, so these are the ones that, for Sell at Auction, that's their listed ones. A lot of municipalities have sold off their cell towers. A lot of private companies have sold them off just because the market is, the market, they're buying, they're trying to acquire. Companies are trying to kind of capitalize on the market right now. So a lot of the deals aren't necessarily the best deals. So what this would do essentially is it helps guarantee that at least if you are considering it, that you are maximizing the deal. It's something we can look at. One of the things that we realize is as landlords, we're not out there actively marketing these sites. We're not, reaching out to market them as effectively as the private sector could. So they are a more valuable asset than necessarily we're getting paid for currently.
Well, and that's what's nice about setting the reserve. We can set the reserve. If the reserve isn't met, the sale doesn't happen. So we can come up with a figure in our mind, work with a professional firm like Sell at Auction, see what they think the value of those towers are. If it seems like makes sense to us, go with that. But if they came with, if we had a $2.1 million offer and Sell at Auction tells us they're worth $1 million, well, obviously that raises some red flags there. So that's what's nice about the reserve, being able to set that where you aren't locked in and have to take a bid that didn't meet what you thought was your expectations.
Questions here? Trustee Hood?
I've worked on the private side negotiating a number of these transactions, purchasing, and so I'd like to be involved in the process. And I think what Pat said is important. I think it's kind of like if we determine what the market value is and set that as a reserve, and if the agreement that the Sell at Auction enters into has just a commission base, there's no other fee that they're charged, it would seem like there's no loss to us going forward with that. But I'd still like to be involved in or at least find out about the process. I don't know, Brian, if you've negotiated or been involved in cell tower agreements.
I think it's an accurate statement that this is a very narrow subject area, and it's a difficult one without the experience. I have been, but I'm not suggesting it was always a favorable outcome, because you get these proposals and how do you measure that? And actually, it wasn't until more recently that I became aware of this, and this concept of actually having an auction, which in principle it sounds like it could be a truer way to assess the value of a cell tower.
Well, and I think another thing that's important to keep in mind is when Jack looked at those net present value numbers, that's assumed that they continue to renew the leases every 5 years. Every 5 years, they can walk away if they want. So those numbers assume they ride those leases out the entire time, which when you look at our escalators in there, by the end of those leases, there's some pretty hefty annual payments they need to make to us. So I'm not sure how much confidence I have that they're going to ride that lease out for 30 years and pay 3% every year for the next 30 years, when they can just go find someplace else or put up a tower and probably be money ahead. So that's concerning as well.
To follow up with Trustee Hood, you wouldn't mind an extra set of eyes?
Oh, no, because I mean, really what you're trying to do is derive the price. And, you know, I don't know, probably 8 years ago, there were salespeople saying that a lot of these assets, they might go to satellite phones and that these would become obsolete. Well, that wasn't true. But I mean, they have different marketing strategies, and different companies have different strategies, and it's very difficult to really drill down and have a true picture. And I think an auction process certainly expands the opportunities to get prices.
We'd welcome your help, Trustee Hood. Trustee Garner?
My question would be, what do we know about the people, the buyers, who buys these things, and why are they buying them? And how does it work out for those municipalities who have sold it? Do they regret it? Or are they happy they sold it? You know, I don't know enough about it, but, you know, obviously they're willing to pay quite a sum of money today for those assets. It must be a pretty good deal for them. And so and then my other question would be, why would we want to sell it? Is it just because of present net value, or is it for other reasons? We need the money for something.
Sure. And one of the interesting things is, so traditionally, and for a long time, there were a couple major players. Originally, at one point, the cell towers, they were the ones who built the towers, got into it. They ended up selling off almost all their assets. So very few of the cell tower companies own towers anymore. They're mainly owned by a couple of the big players, Crown Castle, SBA Communications, American Tower. A lot of these firms now, they own the towers. So it's third-party towers. So that's kind of what we went through. But sell at auction, I mean, they have they do have clients who, anything from a family trust to, you know, anyone that wants to park money for a long time and have a lease essentially of a guaranteed return. It's a safe bet for them in some regards. So that's something that they consider. For us, we have no. And to clarify too, why I'm bringing this to you is not because I'm dead set on selling off these assets necessarily. It's essentially just to get feedback to see what the temperature is. There's pros and cons both ways, but staff, we've all kind of worked together, myself, David, Pat, Brian, and Chris, have met with this firm, and also just looking at it, we've been discussing this for a while now, and that these towers don't really provide us any other benefit other than revenue and as a additional extension of our 4G network. So we're not in the real estate business or necessarily the landlord business. So this would be us taking and utilizing cash now, essentially.
And Jack, really, whoever buys this, they have to get more co-locations, because we know what the value is to the village right now on the leases. They have the extra that they add after they own that is to make sure they get 2 or 3 other vendors on that pole, and then maybe they'll be able to make some money, and that's their business model is based on that. Otherwise, we know what the pole is yielding right now, just with the 1 user and 2 user.
Yeah, and one of the things too, so the tower companies from their perspective, or the potential buyers, they actually like when the leases are coming up soon, rather than ones with long-term leases, because they basically assume that they're going to do a better job negotiating a lease just because that's what they do. So they like the opportunity then to come in, potentially double the rent, increase the escalators, or do whatever it is that they see in the market that's in their best interest.
And from my perspective, I mean, the towers, we don't need them for any of our communications equipment. We own them, so we're responsible form. So if the equipment shelters need maintenance at some point down the road, that's for us to pay. The tower needs maintenance someplace down the road, that's for us to pay. I don't want to be spending money maintaining cell towers and equipment shelters. It was just, when we got that offer, just kind of sparked, our interest in it, and that's why we brought it forward, that, hey, we could possibly take a decent upfront payment on this, and that could be put in the capital fund to, do more roads or water main or whatever. So, there's really no fire to sell these things. It was just an interesting concept that came forward, and I can tell you administratively, trying to chase down these payments every single year from these cell tower companies is a nightmare. David and Brian are constantly every single year trying to chase down the payments that are owed to us. So, there is staff time involved in managing the towers.
Trustee Ross?
Well, since there's such different offers, like the one paid a big amount first and then you still get rent, the other one you just pay. As staff looking at it, what were you thinking was the best way to go?
So one of the benefits of sell at auction, and this was part of our meeting with them, we sat down with them and we were very impressed with the firm. And part of it, what they can do is they can give the option for multiple different pricing structures. So we could have, rather than just doing a straight, give us a single buyout, we could do a multiple different offer levels. So we could say, provide us one offer for 100% cash up front for a 50-year. We could do a buyout, or we could do a hybrid model where we receive additional revenue and some money up front. Similar to, that was one of the offers we had received.